Last year, shortly after the election, a New York Times article from September went viral titled, "Crying Wolf, Then Confronting Trump." It asks whether Democrats have cried wolf so many times that nobody believes them anymore. And so, when honorable and decent men like McCain and Romney are reflexively dubbed racist simply for opposing Democratic policies, the result is a GOP electorate that doesn't listen to reason when the genuine article is in their midst. Do you remember when we thought Romney was as bad as it could get? Those were more innocent times. Caliph of rationality and elite classical liberal Scott Alexander has a different take on it. Back in October 2015, he wrote that the portraits of Trump as the white power candidate were overblown, putting white power candidate in scare quotes there. He then goes on to make a very rationally derived and well thought out argument for why this is the case, basically arguing that Trump is no more or less uniquely terrible than any random 70-year-old white man. A 70-year-old rich cis white man who came from a prominent rich white background. Oh yeah, did you know his father was arrested at a KKK rally in the 20s and fought a $100 million case in the federal court over allegations of housing discrimination? Most people have a shitty relative with terrible opinions, so that or any other point alone is not sufficient evidence to build a case that Trump is racist. But Scott, come on. Scott specifically calls into question that Trump is the candidate of the KKK and the vanguard of a new white supremacist movement, calling these claims a distraction from all the real problems with the Trump presidency. He asserts again in January of 2017, after swearing up and down that he hates Trump and thinks he'll be a terrible president, that he still doesn't actually think Trump is a fascist, just terrible in lots of other ways. Admitting you didn't recognize a literal Nazi when presented with one might be a bit jarring. I'd cut him some slack considering. Wait, why are we calling them Nazis again? The German National Socialist Party hasn't existed since 1945. Fascist, Nazi, white nationalist, Kekistani, they rotate labels a lot because they know as soon as a particular label becomes associated with their actual opinion, it will become politically unacceptable to associate those symbols with themselves. A large part of their strategy is that they don't admit what they are on the surface. This often means that their messaging can appear innocuous, silly, or trivial, and it's often passed around by centrists who don't recognize their dog whistles. Scott also speaks against dog whistleism, as he called it. In a June 2016 post, he says that while some dog whistles exist, the idea of trying to decode secret racist messages from innocuous things politicians say at random one time is producing a chilling effect and stifling political discourse, making it difficult to talk about this stuff. Ironically, Scott sees the effect but fundamentally misses the cause. It'd be cute if it wasn't sort of painful to watch. It's, you know what it is? What? Here, look. So, there's a post he wrote back in March of 2017. It's called "Guided by the Beauty of Our Weapons." There's a kind of beautiful prose to how he writes. You can tell he's driven by a vision of a better world. I think he also is a victim of the just world hypothesis, and he's also privileging the survivor. Listen to this. "I worry that I'm not communicating how beautiful and inevitable all of this is. We're surrounded by a vast confusion, a darkling plain where ignorant armies clash by night, with one side or another making a temporary advance and then falling back in turn. And in the middle of it, there's this gradual capacity building going on, where what starts off as a hopelessly weak signal gradually builds in strength until one army starts winning a little more often than chance, then a lot more often, and finally takes the field entirely." It's kind of a beautiful notion, really. Truth is asymmetric, give it time and it'll win out. Yeah, except it's bullshit. I know what it's like to feel like Scott does. I do remember when I thought that nothing bad could truly ever happen, that humanity wasn't allowed to lose, that science and technology were just going to win, and that we weren't allowed to fail. But it's like Eliezer said, nature is allowed to kill you. Nature doesn't give a fuck if Nazis take over your country and throw you in a gas chamber. You know what happens when Nazis take over your country and throw you in a gas chamber? You die, screaming, and no one helps you. That's the answer. We've kind of gone off on a tangent. You were saying regarding how Scott saw the chilling effect but missed the cause of it? Yeah, see, fascists intentionally use subterfuge and deception in order to spread their ideology and grow in humans. A recent article from The Stranger recounts a tale of reporter and local historian David Lewis sneaking into a white nationalist gathering here in Seattle, where they discussed, among other things, their secret agent strategy. They go as far as to outright call themselves secret agents. David writes, basically, white nationalists meet in secret at conventions like Northwest Forum while paying lip service to diversity at their day jobs. They move into positions of power where they can hire other racists and keep non-whites from getting into the company. Noted white nationalist Greg Johnson has written that these secret agents include professors, writers, artists, designers, publishers, creative people working in the film industry, businessmen, and professionals, some of them quite prominent in their fields. They know their opinions are considered politically unacceptable to the average person, and so they cloud and mask these views behind dog whistles and milk emojis. Fascists thrive off the confusion when liberals and centrists unknowingly spread their memes or parrot their views. It can make the average leftist look crazy and paranoid thinking there are Nazis everywhere already, and leave people wondering whether their friends are just clueless normies or alt-light. In part 2 of his Crying Wolf post, Scott goes down the list of various minority groups and discusses Trump's lip service feel-good message to each one. Blacks, Hispanics, queer people. It's worth noting that Scott didn't even mention women, and I think over the months since taking office, we can all see how Trump has fucked each and every one of those groups and proved his word was worth nothing. So in part 3 of his post, Scott tries to debunk some of the people who called Trump out as a racist. Number 1 asks if Trump is getting a lot of support from white supremacist organizations, to which Scott says no, because there aren't enough organized white supremacists to make up a lot of anyone's support. That's kind of irrelevant, though. The fact that he was widely endorsed by white supremacist organizations is, it's a fact. It's not an indictment on its own, but it's a piece of evidence, and we need to look at it in the broader context. Number 2 asks if Trump is getting a lot of support from online white nationalists and the alt-right, and Scott answers no, for the same reason. Question 3 is largely the same. Scott's trying to build up a narrative picture of fascism as being tiny and irrelevant and disconnected from current events, and paints these groups as being disproportionately loud for their small size. What he's fundamentally failing to see is that this small, loud contingent makes up only a small minority of fascists, as well as making up a small minority of the general population. These people aren't stupid. They're not going to out themselves as white nationalists on internet surveys. All these questions assume that no one would ever lie about being a Nazi. That would never happen. Question 4 argues that calling Donald Trump openly white nationalist requires using a strange definition of openly. But these people aren't going to come out and tell us they want to throw us in an oven, and expecting them to be that overt and obvious is stupid. Have some respect for your opponent's mental capacity. Donald Trump is about as openly anything as you're going to get from white supremacists before they seize political power. There's this expectation on the part of liberals and centrists that if people actually held these views, that they would be open about it regardless of the social costs. And that seems like an incredibly naive view. Humans lie. We're good at it. Question 5. KKK Grand Wizard David Duke endorsed Donald Trump, and Trump disavowed David Duke. Therefore, according to Scott, Trump isn't friends with the KKK. David Duke is a LARPer who revealed his power level. He represents the more extreme fringes of the racist undercurrent of the country. Anyone who's in any sort of position of power is going to disavow him because of the negative optics around his views, but that can't be taken as evidence that they don't still harbor those views in private. We must sound like a paranoid lunatic saying that there are secret Nazis everywhere, and that's the point. Their aim is to confuse, distract, and disarm your mental defenses by either making you think leftists are crazy for thinking there are Nazis everywhere, or by making you think there are Nazis everywhere and making it unclear who you can trust. The point is that our entire country is being fucking gaslit right now. I thought the point was to flirt with ContraPoints. Scott makes a series of predictions and challenges readers to make a bet with him or sit down and shut up. Well, Scott, my poor ass can't afford to bet money, but I am going to put forth my own predictions and my comments on yours. Scott predicts that the total hate crime incidents, as measured by the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting, will not be more than 125% of their 2015 value at any year during a Trump presidency, conditional on similar reporting methodology. Scott is 80% confident in this. I'm 60% confident that this is false and hate crimes will go up during a Trump presidency. The 2017 FBI UCR crime stats aren't out yet, though, so we'll come back to this. Scott predicts that the total minority population of the country, and the Muslim population in particular, will go up, not down, during a Trump presidency, and is 99% certain of this. Well, it would take some heinous shit to actually bring that population down, so I think it's fair to say unless the heinous shit happens, Scott is probably right. However, this presupposes that the country doesn't go down in flames or up in fascism, at which point all bets are off. Scott predicts with 90% certainty that Trump's cabinet will be at least 10% minority, and thanks to Ben Carson and Elaine Chao, his cabinet currently is 12% minority, so nice job pointing out Trump's commitment to token representation. Oh, I'm not racist. Look, here's Ben Carson. Scott predicts that gay marriage will remain legal throughout a Trump presidency and is 95% confident of this. I think I'm something like 50% confident of this being the case. Again, it's predicated on the social order not completely breaking down, and I'm not confident that something important isn't going to snap and throw us into a literal culture war. Scott predicts that race relations as perceived by blacks and as measured by a November 2016 Gallup poll will do better under Trump than they did under Obama, and is 70% confident in race relations improving during his presidency. Well, an identical poll isn't out yet for this year, but going off other recent Gallup data, this claim appears to have been proven false already. In 2014, 17% of Americans said they worry a great deal about race relations. In 2017, that number has jumped to 42%. I won't say this is perfect evidence, but it seems to be leaning in that direction. Scott predicts neither Trump nor any of his officials will endorse the KKK, Stormfront, or explicit neo-Nazis publicly, refuse to back down, and keep their jobs, and is 99% confident of this. I'm actually also 99% confident of this, up until the point where they seize power and topple the institutions of the federal government. It's incredibly stupid of them not to disown their more radical and extreme components. Scott predicts with 99% confidence that no demographic group is going to be sent to internment camps. At this point, I'm only 50% sure that won't happen. I hope it won't happen, but the way the wind is blowing, I'm not confident that something truly fucked up and heinous won't happen. Scott predicts that the number of deportations during Trump's 4 years will not be greater than the number of deportations during Obama's 8, and is 90% confident of this. So far, ICE deportations have actually gone down under Trump as compared to Obama, not for lack of trying on ICE's part. Arrests are up, but groups like the SPLC and the ACLU have been flushed with additional donations following the election, which has allowed them to challenge these deportations and foul up the federal court system. I put even odds on deportations going up or down, but I also don't think that deportation rates are a very good proxy for a president's thoughts on race issues overall. So, where does all of this leave us? Have I presented an unfalsifiable hypothesis that Trump is a secret fascist? Is this like Scott's ancient Atlantean theory, an ad hoc collection of facts darshaned up and connected together by synchronicity? The ancient Atlantean theory is basically the supposition that all of this is random noise, and I'm overinterpreting and pattern matching to my preferred theory. The problem is that saying this is all random noise is a fully general counterargument to inductive reasoning, and you can make it at any time to dismiss any explanation you want. The Nazis are relying on you thinking this is random noise. They know they can't openly flaunt their ideology, and so they gaslight you and make you think either there's no Nazis and I'm paranoid, or there are Nazis everywhere and it's unclear who is and who isn't intentionally spreading their crypto-fascist memes. Maybe I'm paranoid, but there's a saying, it's not paranoia if they're actually out to get you. And Scott, They're definitely out to get me, you, and all of our queer and minority friends. So a bit of paranoia is justified here. They don't even hide their intentions very well. There's people openly calling for gas chambers now. So just keep that in mind when you dismiss this as random noise. What I'm saying is, if it howls like a wolf, has 4 legs like a wolf, fur like a wolf, and the teeth of a wolf, consider that it might not be a trick of the eye. Sometimes, some people cry wolf when there is no wolf there. But other times, people cry wolf because they see a fucking wolf. Yes, I do think Trump is a crypto-fascist with aspirations for taking over America like Putin took over Russia. I hope I'm wrong, but I remain unconvinced that our current state of affairs is anything close to resembling business as usual. Trump has called for liberal media outlets to be shut down. He's created a false equivalence between the alt-right and anti-fascist, and painted an extremely unflattering picture of his views after Charlottesville, all while undermining and disrupting our federal institutions on every level in what looks to me like a clear ploy to break the government. And, Scott, I get it. It's like you said, you work in mental health, and when people come in panicking because they've seen the writing on the wall and think death squads are on the way, you want to comfort them and tell them that no, everything is okay, the world is mostly safe, and nothing like that is going to happen. Well, half the time anyway. The other half, there really are death squads out there, and if that's the case, you really want to believe that that's the case. I'm not calling for panic. I'm calling for a reasoned response. I think we need to stop shying away from this because it hurts to contemplate. The writing on the wall says Donald Trump is going to continue undermining our democracy and sabotaging our country in order to prop himself up as a dictator, at which point it doesn't even matter whether the purges are formal or informal. And we need to be ready to deal with that possibility now, if only as a contingency. I am currently 85% confident in the idea that Trump is a crypto-fascist and will not peacefully leave office. As always, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're a fan of my work, you can support me on Patreon or donate to my PayPal. Links to both of those things, along with my Twitter, blog, and Discord server, will be in the video description. Take care, YouTube. This is Hive Apocrita. This is Hive Apocrita. Until we meet again. Until we meet again.